Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to the sponsors. These videos are really for you and I'm very, very grateful for your generosity. Let's talk a little bit about the 44-gun Forthrates. Obviously, this is an interesting topic, especially for us Americans, since our most famous warships are 44-gun frigates. Frequently, it is called the Constitution class. I probably would not use either of these two terms, but it was a 44-gun single-decked frigate design. 44-gun frigates were not a new thing. They are mentioned back in the establishments in the first half of the 18th century. The moment that 44-gun ships started being too small to really line the line of battle and started being used essentially as cruisers for protection of trade, for showing the flag, for foreign stations, things like this. The class was practically extinct by the time of the American Revolutionary War, but because of the conditions in North America and what the British were facing in the early stages of the war, before France, Spain and eventually the Netherlands entered the war, it proved to be a very good answer. The American colonies did not have anything to oppose of equivalent force. The Continental Congress's navy was, well, let's face it was not a force that really pushed the British in any form or fashion. So for the British, the 44 was a cheap and easily achieved alternative before it became a wholesale war. As long as it was considered to be a policing section, the two-decker 44 gunship offered significant advantages. Shallow draft, concentration of fire on a fairly narrow front, fairly heavy artillery, 24-pounders on the lower deck, 12-pounders on the upper deck, plus the quarter-deck guns, maneuverability, cheap to construct, cheap to man and operate. These all were very important characteristics of the class, which is why they were reintroduced. Particularly well known, of course, is the rowboat class, because Serapis, the famous legendary battle of John Paul Jones, I have not begun to fight, is facing one of these vessels. The British never gave them credit for anything more than what they were, a stopgap measure, not particularly good for anything else except in these specific conditions and as flagships on far-off foreign stations where they are not likely to encounter a powerful enemy warship. In this context, there is a treatise that is of great interest. It is well written, it is very detailed, it clearly is coming from the dockyards. It was republished by Ancret, the Jean Boudriot Nautical Archaeology series, some years ago. It is the Shipwrights Repository of 1788. It came together with a set of drawings, representative of each class of ships. And this is where I'm about to tread with both feet in deep and high controversy, because I appear to be thriving on it. And no matter how much I aim to live peacefully and quietly in a corner, unnoticed, quiet, it just never works out. Something always happens and I have to be in the middle of some mess or another. So, returning to this subject, in this repository, there are two specifications for 44-gun ships. And both are called frigates, but the one is distinguished as being a two-decker, that is the rowboat class, this is Serapis, etc. And the other one is described as a single deck. Whoever the anonymous author of the repository is, or was, I should say, he was strongly advising against continuation of the construction of the two-deck 44, which he considered to be weak, slow, unmaneuverable, an embarrassment for the fleet. Instead of that, he suggested what he considered to be a much more powerful vessel, namely a single-decked 44-gun ship with 24-pounders, essentially just discarding the upper deck of lighter guns. And the suggestion was to drop completely all the small artillery. So what would have been the upper deck on a two-decker to become the armament of the quarterdeck and the forecastle, or the main armament would be the 24-pounders on the gun deck. The vessel was supposed to be much longer than the standard two-decker, which, according to the author, would increase its speed dramatically, because we all know that the speed is function of the length of the waterline. And the longer the ship, the faster the ship. It would be more weatherly because it is offering less wind resistance by being closer to the water, lower. It was pointed out that it will carry its main battery, the 24-pounders, would be carried at least 6 feet above the waterline. While on a 44 two-decker, if you could get them 4 feet above the waterline, you were lucky. And as they were saying, this means that in heavy weather with high waves, the nominal two-decker 44 gunship actually is operating only the upper deck because they cannot open the lower gun deck ports. So their real hitting power is gone. And now they are slow, leewardly ships that do not hold their wind well, and to add to the embarrassment, they are poorly armed. So, a nominally smaller enemy frigates can easily and comfortably capture them. He said that all of these shortcomings can easily be avoided by building longer, lower, single-decked 44-gun frigates. Fast forward to the creation of the United States Navy. And what do we see there? Suddenly, we have the Philadelphia, which was by far the best of the 4 frigates. We have Congress, we have Constitution, all of them 44-gun frigates. To be fair, they are even longer than what the repository was suggesting. If my only 2 fallible memory is correct, the repository was speaking of gun deck length of 168 to 69 feet. 68, I think it was. The specific number probably does not matter all that much, while the American frigates actually built were about 5 feet longer than what the repository was suggesting. Otherwise, all the scantlings, all the armament, all the distribution of guns, they are exactly the same as the specifications in the repository. Which, of course, begs the question, where did the inspiration for our frigates come from? Was it really Humphreys, who evidently could not draw ships? Was he the one who came up with this one? Or was it inspired by something that was proposed and not taken into account in the British Navy? It's an interesting question, it's an open question. I, as a scholar and researcher, do not really believe in coincidences. The notion that independently, quite independently and unknown to each other, but at the same time, 2 different cultures would develop the same thing, I beg to differ. This may be my personal prejudice coming from growing up in a totalitarian regime under communism, where for every great scientific discovery in the world that was discovered by a Frenchman, a German, an Englishman, a Scotsman, an American, there always was just a little bit before him and completely independently, the great Russian scholar whatever, drunkard, came up with the same thing, but it was a little bit better and it was a little bit earlier. So take my last statement about these frigates with a grain of salt. It may be because my entire being wants to explode every time that I hear that two independent things develop the same thing at the same time. I just don't believe in this. The only thing that a Russian can develop independently is a bottle of vodka. And actually, the Polish would disagree with me. They'll point out that they got it from them. I'm willing to believe it. With this, I think that I have taken up enough of your time. And before finding yet another rabbit hole into which to dig and run, let us point out that let us conclude this video with the thoughts that the 44-gun frigate actually was something that was invented much earlier than our frigates. At least the idea for it existed. Coming to think about it, I told you there would be another rabbit hole, didn't I? The 24-pounder frigate, the first version of it was developed by Henry Huff Chapman, the great Swedish naval architect of Scottish origin, who in the middle of the 17th century, and this is how I came with, I remembered to mention this, had the unenviable task of creating a powerful fleet with no money, but a fleet that could challenge and stop cold Russian advance into Sweden, yet another Russian invasion. And he was highly successful in this. He developed a class of ships. Among them, he developed also the famous Bellona-class frigates that became inspiration for all heavy frigates for years to come. The difference, however, is Bellona was smaller than either the Repository proposal or let alone the American 44-gun frigates. What was interesting here is that he was the first one to suggest 24-pounders. For most of their lives in peace, they were armed with 18-pounders not to strain their timbers. But in time of war, they could be armed with 24-pounders and essentially create a second line of ships that are somewhere between a heavy cruiser and a small ship of the line. They worked brilliantly. The Bellona was fast, maneuverable, well-built. Of course, it was built by Swedes. They were highly successful ships as pretty much everything that Chapman designed. And they proved themselves in the battles of the later 18th century against the aggressors. So the Repository may very well have been influenced by Chapman's work, except the Bellona class were 40-gun rather than 44-gun. So if we follow this trail and connections between the two, we may suggest that the line of development of the single-deck 44 24-pounder frigate actually started with Bellona. And at the beginning of the Revolutionary War, the French also developed 24-pounder frigates. The British were concerned when the news reached them, the intelligence. So that is when a number of third rates were razed into heavy frigates, Indefatigable, for example. This is exactly how she turned out. The British considered developing and building, following the Repository's guidelines, building and starting their own class. Eventually, the 40-gun 24-pounder Endymion was built. She is best known, of course, for her capturing the American frigate President of superior force, though Endymion was the faster ship. The problem was that 18-pounder 38 frigates proved to be perfectly capable of dealing with the Revolutionary War French 24-pounders, which proved to be huge, expensive to maintain, expensive to man, and prone to hogging because of the lighter scantlings and less strong hulls that the French favored. Because of this, the British decided that there is no need to build such heavy frigates and found themselves on the back foot at the beginning of the War of 1812. And in fact, it would take them until well into 1813 before they regained the upper hand and the control of the seas. So much about the big fourth-rate 44-gun frigates. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your generous sponsoring of these videos. I wish you a most wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.